Welcome back, V.O.C. YouTube channel, College Football Edition. New week. I think this is week 12 of college football, slowly coming to an end. Next week, big games, Thanksgiving games, where it kind of wraps up the regular season for pretty much everybody, and you move into conference championship week. But before that happens, we still have to finish out the regular season, 2 games each for a lot of teams, where they are at right now and how we see the season moving forward. So in today's video, I want to talk about the playoff and who I think will make the playoff, and look at the teams that, as of right now, with 2 weeks left, have a chance to make the playoff if they win out or different scenarios happen, and then picks this week. Short, simple, sweet. Going to solely figure out how to transition into breaking the season down as the weeks come about. And I think this week, just talking about the playoff, because that's the most important thing at this point in the season. Who makes the playoffs? Who can make the playoffs? Why those teams make the playoffs, and how those teams make the playoffs. So let's jump into it. When you look at the playoff chances and you look at all the different scenarios, there's a lot of them, right? Like ESPN throws them out there, and I have like a hair or something on my eye. I think I got it. Yeah, ESPN throws out these chances of like, oh, this can happen, this team. Look, let's just be the guy that doesn't do numbers, doesn't do analytics, is a little dumb, and just looks at it and goes, let's look at the teams that can make it, and based off of, and then who I think is going to make it. All right, so the first team that is on the list that has a chance at the playoff, the number 1 team, of course, Georgia. They're 10-0, and they will play in the SEC title game. When you look at Georgia, I think from week 1 to now, they've been the most consistent team. You know what you're going to get. Dominant on both sides of the football. Great playmakers on both sides of the football. His hair. They won the national title last year for a reason. They have a chance. They have a chance to win it this year again for a reason. So they have a chance to make it. You look at the number 2 team in the country, Ohio State. They're 10-0. They beat Michigan, and they beat Maryland this week. They're in the Big Ten title game. Right? Like, plain and simple. Then you look at the other team, number 3, Michigan. They are 10-0. Best season, first time they've been 10-0 since 2006, which is crazy to think about a Michigan football team, but that just looks at where the school really is on this perspective of football. Where it takes you a long time to get to 10-0, which is kind of crazy. Look, they beat Illinois this week. They beat Ohio State next week. They're in the Big Ten title game. Pretty much that game against Michigan, Ohio State, in my opinion, is a Big Ten title game, because there's no team in the West that can compete with them, with either of those teams or Penn State. So, that's what sucks about these Big Ten divisions, is they need to be refigured out. But I think conferences, and this will be probably talk about later, but I think when conferences realign, it's not going to be like East. They're going to be like, you play those games, and then you have whoever has the better record, top 2 teams play. And if we did that system, whoever won the Michigan-Ohio State game, it wouldn't really matter because they just play again the next week. So I think that's what we're going to move to with these mega conferences. But that's still a long way. So Michigan, win your last 2 games, win the Big Ten title, you're in the playoff. TCU, they beat Texas last week. I didn't think they'd beat Texas. So TCU is starting to show people towards the end of the year that, hey, we have a legitimate shot. They're 10-0, and they will play in the Big 12 title game. Try talking about the Big 10 then Big 12 back-to-back. I think you'd mess it up too. So they play in the Big 12 title game. They will play in it. They play Baylor this week. It'll be a tough matchup for them. They win their last 2 regular season games. They win their conference title game, playoff for the Horned Frogs. And then you look at the team, number 5, has a shot. Tennessee, they're 9-1. Up until they played Georgia, they were the most dominant team in the country. They played Georgia, not their best showing ever, but it wasn't one that was humiliating. They have a great win against LSU, and they have a good win against Alabama. Number 6, LSU, 8-2. They will play in the SEC title game. They won SEC West, which is crazy to think, right? But they won it. They beat Ole Miss and they beat Alabama to give them the edge Brian Kelly in his first year will play in it. Play Georgia. Have fun with that, Brian. You're not going to like it. But they have a chance at 8-2. If they were to finish regular season at 10-2, go and beat Georgia, end up 11-2, SEC champs. No two-loss teams ever made it, but they would have a great case to make it. Other than the blowout loss to LSU, but I think that them being the SEC champ, I think that would give them the edge over Tennessee, because they'd look at it and say, if they played right now, what would that game be? All right, 7. Number 7 team in the country with another shot at making the playoff. USC, 9-1. If they beat UCLA this week, they're in the Pac-12 title game. They have a legitimate shot just based off their offense. Their defense is horrible, but based off their offense, based off their name of USC, based off Lincoln Riley as their coach, and based off their quarterback, it's just like when Lincoln was at Oklahoma. They may not be the best team defensively, but you look at him, you look at their quarterback, and you look at the name of their school, they get a bid to the playoff just based off of those two things, which is messed up, but that's just how it works. And the last two teams with a shot, the ACC champs. Number 9, Clemson, ACC teams, one of these teams is going to be the ACC champ because they play in the ACC title game. Number 9, Clemson, they're 9-1. Like I said, they play in the ACC title game. Their only loss to Notre Dame. They've not looked great, but they've won games. That's basically how you can look at it, right? They haven't looked great, but they won 9 games. Probably going to win 11 games just based off of everything and how it's gone. And then they have a great shot to win the ACC title game. And then the team they'll play in the ACC title game, North Carolina. North Carolina right now sits at 13. They're 9-1. I think if North Carolina can go in and win 3 straight games, sit there, be 12-1 ACC champs, they have a great case because their only loss is to a Notre Dame team. Say Notre Dame goes and finishes out the season 9-3 with a win over USC to end the year. Now, they look dominated in that performance against Notre Dame, but that's a good loss because you look at it, then Notre Dame would probably be top, I would say at that point, maybe top 12-ish, maybe top 15 for sure. So you look at that and you go, wow. So there, I think the ACC is a dark horse when it comes to this. So after looking at those teams that have a shot right now, that you went out, you're in. That's basically what these teams look at. The teams I think will make the playoff look, and this is what I think that they'll be ranked. Georgia will be 1 at 13-0 SEC champs. 2 will be Ohio State 13-0 Big Ten champs. 3 would be Tennessee 11-1 no champ, and 4 would be Clemson 12-1 ACC champ. And people are going to sit here and say blah 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 blah. I think at the end of the day, to me, the top 3 teams, after I think Ohio State beats Michigan. So then I look at the top 3 teams. Well, Georgia's 1, Ohio State's 2, Tennessee's 3. Those are the top 3 teams. I think those teams get in. And then, to me, I just think Michigan's non-conference is going to hurt them. TCU, I feel like, is going to slip up in one of these games over the next 3 weeks. And then I look at USC. I think they're going to lose one of their games in the next 3 weeks. And then I think Clemson's going to beat North Carolina in the ACC title game. So I look at it and then go, that's your 4. That's just how I'm going to base it off of, and that's just what I think. All right, moving on to picks this week. I was 4-7 last week. Horrible week for my biggest week ever. It is what it is. You die, you revive yourself, and you come back. But I'm still 45-37 on the season. I think I have 7 games this week. Need to kick it into overdrive here. Finish out with some great winning weeks to finish out the season. All right, first game. Illinois, 7-3 at number 3, Michigan, who is 10-0. Michigan's an 18-point favorite. Illinois had 2 bad games back-to-back, right? Lose both their games back-to-back. Games they should not have lost. Michigan comes in here looking towards next week, I believe, a little bit. Line's 18. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people think, but I think Michigan wins it. But I think they'll be looking forward a little bit to that Ohio State game because that game makes or breaks their year, not this Illinois game. Number 4, TCU is 10-0. They're minus 2.5-point favorites at Baylor. Baylor's 6-4. This game, I think if TCU can win this game, Then TCU looks at it, and then TCU wins this game. Then I look at it and they go, they have their shot, in my opinion, to making the playoff goes from like 20% to like 40%. That's a big jump. Now, I think TCU will win this game, but this is one of those games where I'm like, won't be shocked if Baylor wins it. But TCU proved a lot beating Texas last week, so I think they'll do it again. There's something about this team. That may not be the most talented team, may not always blow people out, but they win games. Number 24, NC State, who's 7-3 at Louisville. Louisville 6-4. Louisville's a 4-point favorite in this game. This is a weird game. It's an ACC game, so not a lot of people have eyes on it, but it's got a little spice when you look at all the other games this week. This is a tough one to look at. I like Louisville in this game. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be tight. Probably something crazy happens at the end of it, but I like Louisville. Number 14, Ole Miss, who's 8-2, minus 2.5-point favorites at Arkansas. Arkansas is 5-5. Maybe the most disappointing team in my eyes this year is Arkansas. I thought they were going to be really good. 9-3, 10-2 maybe. Look at them. They're fighting to even get to a bowl game. I talked about this game because Ole Miss loses last week to the heartbreaker to Bama. How do they respond? I like Ole Miss in this game in Lane Train, but I think it'll be close. It'll be tight. Arkansas is that team where they got nothing really to play for other than get to a bowl game with 6 wins. You know, they played close last week against LSU, so they're going to be in games. Number 22, Oklahoma State, who's 7-3 at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 5-5. They're a 7.5-point favorite. I don't get this. Oklahoma, to me, is not very good. They have been very, very disappointing in Brent Venables' first year. I get Lincoln Riley took a lot, but it's still Oklahoma at the end of the day. I like Oklahoma State in this game. And I think we start to have a discussion, does Oklahoma make a bowl game? All right, this is probably one of the more spiciest games of the week. Number 7, USC, who's 9-1, minus 2.5-point favorite, at number 16, UCLA. UCLA is 8-2, lost last week. Not a very good showing. They are 8-2. Let me figure this out real quick. Yep, they are 8-2. Number 16. They just lost last week to Arizona. Horrible loss. Shouldn't have lost it. I think this game is close. I think it's very tight, but I think that USC wins it. I trust their offense a little bit more, and I trust Lincoln Riley. It's the craziest thing to say this. I trust Lincoln Riley a little bit more than I trust Chip Kelly. All right, last game. Number 10, Utah, 8-2. Utah's a minus 2-point favorite. At number 12, Oregon, 8-2. Oregon lost last week to Washington, who's a very good football team. I think Utah wins this game. And I just, there's something about Utah. There's a lot of hype coming in the year. They lose the first game at Florida, but they've slowly figured themselves out. Physical team, tough team, have a very good shot of messing up Oregon's chances at a Pac-12 title game. And I don't trust Bo Nix. I'll just say, I just don't trust Bo Nix. I get he's had this great year, but I just don't trust him. I watched him play in the SEC, Pac-12. He's played better, but come on. You still have to go back to what I've seen more of. I've seen more of him in the SEC where he hasn't looked good. I've seen more of him in college football where he hasn't looked good. I don't get enamored with this one great year. So that's going to do it for today's video. Who makes the playoffs this week determines a lot. You wouldn't think so because the games maybe aren't as big, but it does because dominoes could fall very quickly if one of these teams gets knocked off. Like we have seen regularly with the top 10 team these past couple weeks getting knocked off. And then picks. Hopefully I do better. Still 500 in a year, but if I keep slipping below 500 these last few weeks, I'm not going to be. So that's going to do it for the video. Thanks for watching.